Welcome back to another episode of Chi Talks. I'm Javi, joined with our co-hosts Nona, Ikeda, Tony, Khalife. Glad to have you guys back again. And our guest today
Good to be
is
here.
Tony's partner is our guest today, Shiva. And
Good to be here.
thanks for joining. We've had a previous conversation about the chart, the birth chart, and astrology, and you've given me some information and some knowledge about myself that I didn't have, and it's super exciting. I really want to dive right in. Let's get started and let's talk about last time we had what would you call it, your teacher Daniel, and so let's talk about like a little bit about what he went over, and let's segue into how you come in to play, and what got you involved, and now what your role is.
Right. Well, my work with astrology, it came as of a need to really dive deep into understanding myself because I'm always like curious about the mysteries, and that shows up in all the archetypes that are showing up on my birth chart. So it is my job here to investigate the mysteries, and I needed a language to be understood. There's so many modalities out there, and they're all so amazing. And you just find them from different times and ages, and you delve in them, and you find there's a silver lining that connects everything. And there can be a language that connects all these different cultures and mysteries. And astrology is really that language. It gives us something that it's been perceived and worked with throughout the ages by different cultures. So it's really that universal language that gives shapes to all of the other understanding of the mysteries. But not only that, in a personal way, it applies to who we are. It's kind of the blueprint, if you would say, our operating system. And by knowing that, then we would know what are our limits and what are our strengths and how to work with them. So um, I hope that answered your question in a short way.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, we are. Go ahead, Tony.
No, you go ahead, Nona.
I was just going to ask, maybe you could tell us about how you found your teacher and that whole journey to discover, meet him, and create that relationship.
Right. I think it was actually Tony who initiated that because I was dwelling in a lot of different lineages and studies, from Shivananda yoga to Vipassana to, different forms and modalities that I could understand the mysteries in. But I started really realizing that astrology is important, and the material that I was finding in the mainstream is always very limiting. I mean, in this modern day and age, astrology is getting really popular, but it hasn't really been in a broader scale being like modernized. It's still we using things from antiquity, and sometimes that language is limiting to our time. So I was keep seeking different like form of it because I believe in its essence. So I first came across the work of Carolyn Casey, which is another one of suggestions from Tony, and she's an amazing being, and that was just really amazing. I read that book for like maybe 10, 12 times. That was my Bible for a while, and then I asked Tony, who else should I study with? So he suggested Danielle, which was also a guest on Caroline Casey's podcast. So that's how I found him, and I started tuning into his school and reading the free articles. I got his book. I read that another 6, 7 times. And then I decided to have a reading with him. And shortly after, start studying the astrology with him because it's really a different language. It's what I was seeking. It really gives you that ability to understand yourself, and nothing is good or bad. Everything has a reason. We understand that all the places on the wheel of life have their rightful place, but knowing where we came from and where we are heading to, then we can, with that understanding, like make decisions that are progressive.
Yeah, my journey with astrology has been, I've never been an astrologer, although I dabbled. I've done few charts in my life, but definitely it's been an incredible guidance and the learning about how to function in the world through the modalities that are co-created by how you understand your reality and what your prescribed reality is, and what you are making in the moment that is also confining you or liberating you. And I used to regularly listen to Caroline Casey on KPFA, and sometimes when I was on the road, I'd actually ask one of my students to record on cassette. You're talking about mid '90s, probably before you guys were born. No, I'm just kidding. But then yeah, she's always had some of the absolutely most I would say the powerhouse of modern thinking and ancient thinking, and people who hold the torch and who hold the light for a lot of the modalities we're working with, and they're heavyweights. And my encounter with Daniel Gimario was in 1998, and he was actually exploring the Venus cycle and talking about death with intent. And uh, and then I just I was pretty profoundly stirred, and I went through a ritual of death with intent myself, and shaved my head. My hair was long; it was even longer than this, and shaved my head, and had fasted for a few days, and kind of took on a literal death without moving for hours in the hills of Big Sur. And then a bunch of my students carried me, and they shaved my head and carried me and threw me in the river, and I was born from the water. It was an exhilarating experience, because when you do this uh, ritualistically and ceremonially, it has an entirely different impact on who you are, and following the way the stars are moving and the planets and how they're influencing you in your life, and capitalizing on the timing. Timing is important in our life, and finding the right timing to make certain moves is crucial, as we know in martial arts. And when it is time to and it's time to make that turn, if you don't make that turn, things can go, you know, quite wrong for one's health. And so, but from that perspective, so my encounter with Daniel Jamari was incredibly influential, and so is Caroline Casey. So, but that's why my recommendation to Shiva about these two incredibly most powerful human beings on the planet. It's they are a deep dive, I would say. So.
I just have to say, this is quite amazing. I mean, for me, this really speaks to when you say like function in the world. We ask these questions contemplatively, in meditation, like, why am I here? What am I here to do? What am I meant to do? Am I on the right path? And I think I was just having another talk with someone else. We like those deepest questions, we have maybe a moment in time where we ask those questions, or we're concerned, or we're curious. For some reason, those questions kind of get put on a back burner, if you will. And, the sort of real life sort of things then have to be put on the front burner. And we have to just focus on like going to school, or making grades, or making money, going to the job, chopping wood, carry water, basically. But like, um, that's been my experience. That's been my experience. I'm not sure if that resonates with a lot of people, but like for me, that and seeking self knowledge and deeper wisdom to find a path. So for me, in terms of like the steps I've been taking, it's a feeling process, not necessarily logical or intellectual, but the feeling comes outside of myself. So I know that it comes from outside of myself. It's not necessarily um, predetermined in the sense of what society sort of dictates. And so you're nodding your heads, and I think that that kind of makes sense to you. And the language and the word itself, language, make sense in terms of being able to communicate, especially like in with yin and yang. We have the physical space, the material space, and the immaterial space. The immaterial space is what we find we lack the language for. So in my study, a lot of like the personal internal manifestations, happenings, essentially world, universe, and life, to not have a language for that makes it completely so difficult, hard to communicate in a moment or in a context or to a person what the heck is going on, like inside of me. So just the simple fact of going through a process of naming emotions and feelings and needs and internalizing hopes and desires, visions collaboratively with other people is so that sort of in the sense function in the world really speaks to me. And so with that said, what is now the astrology language? What is it about? So when I think of astrology, I have a very superficial definition of the word, just kind of like of the stars, of the sky. Um, but when you started to tell me and read me my chart, the words that you're using, like Pisces rising, means nothing to me. I have no idea what that means. I mean, it's like saying Tai Chi to someone who doesn't know what it means. It's like saying Bagua. It's like Bagua or Pong or matching gates or something like that. So you started to give me these terms and this language, and then how it comes up for me in my life. Well, these sort of patterns or these principles or these ideologies that you sort of carried through life, and you may carry, but now you're kind of coming into the new age or the turning of the ages, and so start looking at these sort of concepts because of these, stars. I sort of get a sense for the language, and I'm really excited to dive in and look deeper at astrology and the language.
Yeah, definitely the language can be as simple as or as complicated as one wants to make it sound, but astrology as an art and science, because it is both really, it started by the visual experience of the heavens. There are dedicated people in all these ancient lineages that sat in the same place and built observatories so they can view the turning of the sky, and over like just dedicated decades of a study they came to these understandings. So everything, like a lot of things named as they are, but we kind of like lost that connection because most of us, even astrologers, we no longer look up into the sky. So a lot of these terms becomes just heady and doesn't have that meaning. But what you were referring to, Pisces rising, that's literally the sign that was rising in the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. That's why it is your rising sign. That's why it would resonate with you, because for you to be here, if you believe that you have an essence, a spirit that comes from another place to this third dimension, it passes through all these spheres to get here. And it gets marked by the stamp of that time. The timing of everything is so important. So everything is really related once we look at it and we drop that, like, just heady understanding of it. Even when you're saying that, you feel through things, maybe it's not something that's logical. That's exactly speak to your Pisces rising. The intelligent for Pisces is feeling. So like when Pisces feels as opposed to another sign, maybe that feels and the feeling is just internal feeling. And all of this are right. Like that's why astrology comes helpful, just to tell you what it is and what you're working with. So it was like for a different sign, if it was Libra, it would be very intellectual understanding, but for Pisces it would always be a feeling understanding that most valid.
Yes, yeah. We talked a little bit about that. Go ahead, Tony.
You feel this?
Yeah, this is if you're just tuning in, this is Chi Talks with Javi, Nona, and Tony. We have Shiva on today. I'm really glad to have you. And you mentioned this before. This is really fascinating, and I think Nona could also validate the word feeling, because for us it really means a lot in terms of what we studied on the mountain, and then like what we study with each other, and Yeah, you have more to say on that?
Well, I do a lot of different things have come up from what you said. I want to like make sure that Shiva gets the most airtime here because
Mm.
I'm left with a lot of questions and just realizing and
See what you
seeing
got.
how much I don't know. But what I do want to say is that when you were talking about everything has its place on the wheel, and I think I had this feeling come up when Daniel was talking too that this is in very very compassionate system, and that when you were speaking about it, I felt like a very deep sense of peace. Like everything is as it should be and needs to be, and that there's something larger than yourself that is at play here. And I think that's a big part of all spirituality is that there's this understanding that there's something that's beyond just your skin that is at play, and that it is not just what you see and touch and that has significance. And so when you stated that, it just there's like a a sense of truth about it and a peace that comes from it. I think a lot of faith is that way too. But when you then add that this is a science that there's a tangible aspect to it that goes beyond just pure faith in something you can't see. Well, you can see the stars and you can see the patterning. It's kind of like a message that's there from beyond, and so even if you go into the science of light and the light that's produced and the energy that's coming at us, like it gets very it's like the connection of something ethereal and unreachable and something that's real that you can that witness yourself. So I think it's a pretty what more is magical than this night sky and what we view and to have an understanding of that. And we're very removed from the night sky as a society with all of our street lights and activities that we do in the evening that's not no longer just sitting and gazing. um, I think that's an interesting place to find ourselves, like really separated from the celestial. Um, so I think that's pretty much my impression right now. And then realizing I'm such a newbie at all this too, like Javi, like a lot of the vocabulary um is doesn't yet have weight yet in terms of it because I haven't made those connections that you're able to provide. So I don't know how you want to do this. Maybe have
Mhm.
Shiva give your reading on air and then talk maybe go through the an example of what that looks like.
I'd like to. I think that's totally fine. I would like
That's a different idea. There you go.
I would like for her to introduce again the turning of the ages, and maybe in her own way, in her own words, similar to what Daniel did, and then we can talk about how my chart or anyone's chart fits in. I'd like for the listeners to know, connect, maybe intellectually, and I'm always curious about how do we give them the feeling. This is like the Tai Chi and Qigong aspect. It's like it's good to circulate your energy, but feeling your energy circulating or feeling blood flow circulating, like that's what really speaks to us. It's the visceral, sense, the nervous system response. So I'm really curious to see if that could happen.
Yeah, before Shiva launches, I just want to say something. I mean, everybody, through the understanding of these modalities, everybody gets to learn how to feel in their own way.
Mm.
Because there's no two people are the same, and although we do share some kind of a cosmic connection, and truly, I mean, we didn't arrive to this place of knowledge and understanding without the help of all the ancient methods that were applied in order to give us this kind of knowledge, right? We still are we It's like in Qigong and Bagua and Tai Chi. If you're not practicing the fundamental stuff, you are not going to be able to have good rooting system. You're not going to be able to grow in the way that your chi is growing without to have those fundamental things. And unfortunately, as you were saying, Nona, yes, we are a little bit divorced from the night sky, and we only run now on the knowledge of it. But still we may forget about the stars, but they don't forget about us, because they're magnetic fields, right? They're continuously engaging us in the way we are in, and highlighting at times it is true and at times it's truer. So we might not gonna be in cahoots with what's going on in the world, but we might be also receptive to what's going on for us, and we might not be receptive, but it's still going to happen regardless. So, and I think that's where a chart reading becomes really incredibly poignant, because a chart reading kind of positions you where the events are happening in your life. And as they are happening, you get to understand that, oh, well, it's leaning towards this. Oh, now it's leaning towards that. So with that knowledge in mind, it gives you the power to move accordingly, to move more in the symbiotic relationship with the occurrences and the current, as opposed to be moving against the current and trying to swim upstream when you should be really surrendering to the stream. So, that's where the knowledge is so incredibly crucial, and becomes a life-saving. Shiva is really good at this stuff, because she knows how she's quite accurate, and astrology is a really accurate science. So, as she gives you the movements of your planets, and what is more highlighted in this moment, or what will be in, let's say, in the next 6 months or so, it's it requires a really special attunement. It requires having that mind to be able to connect things in a way that is quite, exceptional. You go, Shiva. You take it. You fly on.
Mhm.
Well, definitely some notes on what you shared, and also what Nona was talking about, that astrology, if you want to like really understand it, it's coming from one of the pillars of the Hermetic science. Hermetic science is what give to us all the modern science that we have. Everything comes from there. That's the mother or grandmother of all sciences. So astrology, its basis is as above, so below, as within, so without. So there isn't anything that's forcing us, but we all part of this one thing, the miracle of one thing, which is part of the Hermetic text. So with astrology, it's just we find these connections and we can align ourselves, and that gives us this idea that what is available at this time. We can have the best so-called cycles in astrology that everyone says, oh, this is when you are so lucky, you bring all these opportunities. But if you haven't practiced your whole life to take advantage of an opportunity, it passed by you. You might be like you grab a point of it, but the more you are engaged with it, you have more ability to really take advantage of your life and become really eternally the best possible version of yourself, because we all like inspiring to become our best ways, become richer, become more beautiful, become more knowledgeable, whatever it is. And all of this can be valid for different archetypes. Not all of us are coming here to be the most spiritual or be the ones that some people like really it's in their karma to come here and work on learning how to make money, how to support a family. And that's valid. But some other people come here to be renunciate. And just knowing those, it gives you that choice. Still, we are human and we have free will. So we can choose to cooperate with it or not. But why wouldn't you want to cooperate with the universal forces who are here to help you evolve and grow? So astrology in that sense comes so handy. And I mean, it's been for ages always connected to the gardening and all our practices of growing our food and harvesting it. And in a sense, it's just so intertwined. Like if you know one, like if you're a gardener, you really know astrology, but you don't know that you know it, because they just go hand in hand. Like astrology tells you what kind of plant you are, what kind, are you a tree, are you a bush, like what fruits you have, what is your highest point. And knowing that, then you know that an orange tree fruits in a different time as a plum, as a strawberry bush. And they're all good. We love all of them, right? It's the same with the archetypes of astrology, but each one have a different timing. And that's what basically astrology can offer you. So I wasn't quite ready for doing a whole chart, but we did definitely have a nice talk about the charts, and I have it here ready, but none of my notes, but we can have maybe a small like dive into some of the archetypes and what they
Perfect.
might be relating to your life.
Yeah, and you know, it's my understanding that the turning of the ages also is kind of happening right now as well. So this is part of the reason why we're seeing the things outside of ourselves and in the external that we're seeing. And so if you can elaborate a little bit on that and then transition into the archetypes.
Right. I think Danielle had a good segue into it. Started talking about it, basically the turning of the ages. Some people are familiar with hearing, oh, the age of Aquarius. And we've been hearing about the age of Aquarius since the 1920s that Danielle put it. People have been talking about it and everyone's confused. It's like, we know there is a change in the world. There's something happening in a big, major way. But we don't know exactly what is this time. So this goes based on this long astrological cycle of 26,000 years, which a lot of other cultures also have them in their long counts. So this is happening because of the wobble of the earth. We call it the sacred wobble of the earth. And that makes this really slow precession of equinox where we have different pole stars during this 26,000 years. And that's basically going backward in the signs of the zodiac. So we are right now, and that's basically also most people, when they say age of Aquarius, they're looking at a place that the equinox the spring equinox would be. That's moving from being in the Pisces for over 2,000 years now into Aquarius slowly. The backdrop of the sky, it's like such a big concept, but I'm trying to explain it in a way that it makes sense. But this backdrop, that it's changing, the constellations of the stars in the backdrop are changing. So, and that's what a lot of people also talking about. Astrology is not lining up with the constellations of zodiac in the sky, which is a whole other big subject, but it's because of this wobble. And it's so slow. It's like it changes 1 degree in the night sky, which is really hard to say. Like, unless if you're looking at the night sky every night and you know exactly what appears where, every 72 years. So it's like takes observations of generations to understand this. That's why a lot of time this is forgotten about, and that's what's happening. And every time we are going from one constellations of stars to another is just a big shift, because the stars are kind of informing our experiences here. That's like a different layer to our understanding of the zodiac. And I hope I'm not getting too technical here, but that's the turning of the ages that's happening. So
and overall, what kind of significance can we see from that 27,000 year cycle? 26,000 year.
Right. I mean, at this 26,000 years, basically every sign of zodiac get a chance to be aligned with these different star constellations that are in the backdrop. So the whole of astrology and the whole of time is just layers upon layers, and that's what gives us each one of us our unique way of being, and the planets and the universe their unique way of being, because it's just not one layer. It's not that, oh, every Taurus is going to be the same every Aquarius. There's first of all so many planets in the chart that have different archetypes. So it's like with the bigger times it has the same thing. There's so many layers, which gives just more freedom of expressions, more things to be expressed, because the nature of universe is expressive. It wants to create things that have never been there before. Mm-hmm. So it just happens same in our archetypes and our buildings. So that's what's happening. And every time there changing, but basically it's the beginning and ending of these long cycles of time where we basically gather all of our human experiences and go through this period of chaoses where we really get to truly investigate what has worked in the past few thousand years. And we have opportunity, because it's the beginning of a new cycle, it's a seeding point. We have opportunity more than any time with our actions to seed the future. And it is everyone's time during this time to really participate in this. And that's why we have so many people right now at this time on earth, more than any other time that we remember in our recorded history, because everyone's here to witness this time and actually participate in it and clear whatever that they have worked on and gathered in the past couple thousand years, in whatever way you want to believe in it. Maybe you believe that your soul keeps reincarnating here. Maybe you just believe in the DNA that's passed on to you through the human family lineage. It is still something like a data that we work with. So that's really the significance of it, being able to be here, be aware of why you are here now more than ever, which is another main thing that astrology can offer. What was your soul intent for coming to this place? What did you want to do? Because that's part of your growth and evolution. And kind of by knowing that, you can align yourself with that and actually make a difference. It doesn't matter whether you are a leader or whether you're doing the smallest job. Everyone has a place, and knowing your chart, you kind of know your place in the world, and then you can be like content with it, knowing that you can maybe use your free will, and instead of doing this a small job, which is exactly what universe needs you to do, like asked you to do, you can do something really big, but the universe literally has a hole that has not been filled because you haven't participated there. Nobody else can do that. So I just feel like knowing your life purpose and what you are here to do, then in whatever way you do that, you're just fulfilling that place and you authentically find your true place in the world, which is what all of us, yearn and try to have.
If you're just tuning in, this is Chi Talks with Javi, Nona, and Tony, and our guest today is Shiva. We're talking about the feeling of astrology. I'm getting a feeling for the connection to spirituality, and knowing one's place in the world. I grew up with a Christian background, so we were always told that God has a purpose for you. In the language of astrology, this is really interesting in terms of learning the soul's intent.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, one of the things that Tony introduced was the fundamentals. And so, interestingly, I think of like, if there's a spiritual layer, if this is the spiritual layer of the spiritual speakings of astrology, interestingly, there's some spiritual fundamentals that we ought to take part in that are base. And that's like, so for example, what does that mean? Well, is eating a spiritual act? And can it be a spiritual act? Right? Or like, walking in and of itself, just taking a step or a few steps forward can be a spiritual act. Having a conversation or an interaction with someone, as you have your own soul's intent and they have theirs, and they, that in and of itself is could be looked at as a spiritual act and maybe a sacred experience as well. So thanks for bringing this.
Yeah, I mean, as in martial arts, they say the healing point and the killing point are the same. The difference is pressure. So, and I think in fundamental knowledge, if you are taking that step, that step could lead you to your own self-preservation or deterring from self-preservation. And I think the difference there is intention, because you align yourself with your intent, and as you are moving, so you're either magnetized towards that intent, or you literally are not tuned in the intent that you have for the purpose of your life. And to come to clarity with what is one's purpose and what is one's intent, there isn't really any greater modality to find or to work with more than astrology, because it delineates the language, kind of prescribes pretty much everything that's possible that's going to go with you, either wrong or good, in a very compassionate and very uplifting way, because it's kind of shining the light on your issues. It's shining the light on the grace that comes with these lessons, and it's giving you also the remedy. You know, if you lack something in particular way because you're not tuned in to the way that you should be living your life, then that's a great power to know, oh well, I no wonder why I've been feeling this way. I should be exercising this part of my life more so than this. And you know, I mean, as Shiva, as she peers into anyone's chart, you know, when she peers into my chart, and I definitely am, I'm a, you know, I got,
Guinea pig.
yeah, no, I got 15 planets in Aries, for example. Well, you know, not 15, but you know, exaggerating a little bit, because
22.
when you have that much fire, it's hard not to burn in the wake of everything that you do. So, but yet at the same time, I have a Gemini rising, which is it's all about being in service to spirit. And you know, when you're in service to spirit, there's no personal agenda there. You know, so there is, you know, all the fire that you have. How do you transform that fire to become in service to spirit, as opposed, you know, trying to just either burn yourself or burn anybody that comes within your sphere. So yeah, and that was a great lesson, you know, and given the fact that I grew up in a warring environment, and I had survived the civil war from the age of 10 till the age of 20, and you know, there's a lot of fire there, and there are a lot of issues that have been kind of ingrained in me, and I've been a warrior from the beginning, you know, being born in a warring culture, and also living war from a very early age until I came to America, where actually for the first time I saw people actually enjoying life and being out on the streets, and there are street lights, and you know, people in cars, and nobody's dodging sniper rounds, and so forth. So that encounter was definitely more than a culture shock. It was every shock I could possibly have, and to climb from that perspective, or from that ingrained feeling in cultural uh, upbringing, to a place of peace and understanding, nothing has been more effective and more substantially transformative more than astrology, because uh, yes, it is a map, it is a total map, it is the GPS of your soul, basically, and it just sends you where you need to go. And then along the way you learn so much, and those learnings are incredibly transformative and empowering and encouraging to keep going.
Not to say that you wouldn't experience all of that if you don't know astrology or your chart. That just naturally comes with life experiences, but just, you know, just having that knowing that at least it's something's happening that's limiting or expansive, that it is in the order of things, and how you can also participate with it. Because as Tony was explaining at the beginning, how he was given that ceremony and ritual to do at that cycle. It's like what Danielle in his system offers, which was so charming for me to start studying with him. He has this kind of systems. Oh, there is this cycle, and this is the best solution for working with it. So you actually have something, you just knowing, not knowing, for example, oh, there is like a Saturn to my sun in Pisces. What does that mean though? How do I work with that? It actually has that kind of not solution, but like, how do you get to participate? So you're not just in effect of it. So you're not just being pushed around till you figure out finally which way to go. It's just more time efficient, I would say.
Would either of you be willing to give an example of a chart reading that has helped you, like make a decision, or how you respond to it, something specific, like a specific example?
Definitely. I mean, there are basically in the chart, you have your personal planets, and then you have these outer planets. Personal planets are the ones we can see with our eyes, and they are in the inner solar system. So those are the ones that the archetype kind of more resonate with who we are as a people, or what we're working toward really in this life. But then we have this outer planet, invisible planets, that we look at them as teachers. And when they are making this geometric aspects to where our planets, which is basically our stamp of time and the space that we came here with, they're kind of facilitating these different experiences in our life, again, as above so below. That's how this happens. And some of these planets in the modern astrology, you probably heard, they say, oh, it's like a bad aspects that happen, is a bad transit, it's difficult, because they have lessons that are more difficult to digest, but they still have lessons. It doesn't just happen to you because you're a bad person, you had bad karma, you're just unlucky. The worst thing that happens in life to us, it's still an initiation. So I have Pluto, which is one of the scary, planets for everyone in astrology, as a birth stamps in my chart close to my moon. This is like my greatest teacher. In modern astrology, it's read as like, it's horrible. Oh, poor you have that aspect, that's mostly even the best astrologers. That's what, they would mostly see it as, but that kind of for me become my best friend. It's my teacher. It's the one that I always gonna understand and learn life through that lens. And it is through those transits of Pluto also, which can be really intense for me, that if I'm not knowing, there's chaos in my life. Everything is out of my control. I'm feeling powerless. Not knowing that, you can fall into depression, and it's okay during those times to be depressed, because depression is a good thing. You're feeling the depth of the feeling, and the more you're going there, as long as you don't lose yourself, you have the opportunity to feel the other side of it, which is maximum happiness and fulfillment. So, like, not knowing it, you can fall prey. I can be like, what's wrong with me? Why am I just feeling this lack and just so depressed? And maybe try to have a medication that relieve that. But like, knowing that I'm this cycle, and it's my rightful human right to feel these emotions, it's okay. I can be more depressed than other times in my life, because that depression shows me really what it is in my depth that I really, really want. Maybe everything on the surface, Pluto is about death and destruction and composting, but what do you get out of compost? This, amazing thing that you regrow things. If you don't compost it, you can't grow the new thing. And it's work. That's how it teaches us how to compose things that no longer serves us, but that brings all this, feeling of being down and depressed and not satisfied. So just knowing that that's happening, it's a lifesaver. Otherwise, you can just not know why you're feeling this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that word of caution in here, a lot of our modern astrologers, and the way we sometimes use astrology, we use it as a scapegoat. It kind of validates why we are doing certain things, and with the intensity that we are doing them. In this system of understanding oneself and directing oneself to your intended purpose, it's it doesn't necessarily allow you to take it out on people. It doesn't necessarily give you a green card so that you can just apply all of these issues on other people and use it as a scapegoat. Well, I've got Pluto and Scorpio, so what do you expect? But it's really a way of understanding your own self, so that you can apply the correct pressure towards your own healing, and not put pressure so that you can kill that very thing that you're trying to heal. And so a word of advice for anybody who's practicing astrology is to really always look at the positive side of it as much as you can, and try not to use it for a scapegoat, because karma could be incredibly severe. We might be thinking, this is my time to speak my truth, and you're going out to speak your truth, and you're yielding swords and spears, and you're just annihilating anybody in your path. But ultimately, really what you're doing is you're annihilating yourself. So having the power to speak your truth does not necessarily give you power over others. And having the power to feel your own self of composting doesn't give you the power to compost other people. So in a way, it's always been an empowering um, modality to work with, and some people use it to control other people, or to exercise power over other people. But that as above so below, and what you put out is what you're taking in at the same time.
That's really as within, so without, because it's not as without, so within. It's really as within, so without. So you cannot change the situations that are happening outside of you, even change the people who are doing something that triggers things in you by changing yourself. It would just really reflect and magically resolve that. It's really give you that power to work internally, like many of the martial arts.
You work internally, you observe something on the external, but working internally can help to shift something on the external.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
And there are also cycles that you really have to do the work externally, and those are also obvious. Danielle was talking about it. There are three worlds, sometimes we are in the underworld, sometimes in the middle world, which is really like building things, doing things, actually taking actions. And sometimes you're in the celestial, where you just go with the flow of where things take you.
Well, shall we transition to the archetypes? And
you wanted to discuss a little bit of your chart on the air, so talk about you a little bit, expose you a little bit more expose. Who is Javier Rodriguez?
Well, it was very interesting. Yeah, I mean, when you were saying to me that I'm a Pisces rising, and you have the rose-colored glasses on, and you walk with the feeling and connected with feeling and emotion, and then you feel others, but it's not necessarily your feeling. So distinguishing your external and internal. I'm just gonna go with a little bit of a review because there's some here that I didn't know. And you talked a little bit about the turning of the ages, but then Mars came up and Libra, and we talked a little bit about the intellectual and the relationship between the intellectual with the feeling. That was really interesting, and I'll stop there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We talked about basically in the chart, there's a direction. We have some clues about where the souls come to this life from, like what habits and what things they naturally bring here. That shows even in the newborns and the small children, they have certain attitudes. And then there is the rest of the chart that basically tells you what are you here to investigate, and also the outer planets, what are the strategies that help you to get from where you come to this life from to where you're heading. And sometimes we're heading somewhere completely different, and sometimes we're going to study the same lineage, the same. Each one of the signs are kind of a mystery school of life. We are coming here to learn about them. We're signing up in these different schools. We take this course here, we take art at Leo, and maybe we take our science somewhere else. Maybe somebody else does it differently. That's why we're all unique individuals, although there's only 12 archetypes. So for you, we talked about your moon is already in Pisces, and so your destination point and your rising sign, where you are going in this life. And when that happens, it's really at any time, but more than ever at the time of the turning of the ages. These are archetypes that are here to really help re-envisioning these archetypes. Because when we have our lineage or our moon in this system, we look at it. In modern astrology, they say moon is your feeling, is your habits, are the things that deeply connected to your emotions. But all of this are part of our lineage. That's why we're connected to it. and it's just like, our deepest part of us. But our lineage is basically, if at the time of our death we believe that we have to give up everything, I feel like that lineage is something that's so ingrained in us. We've done it for so many years. We have several PhD in it. We're a master. It's so ingrained in us that it actually lives with our soul. So that's like something that we already mastered. So this is always a place we go to draw our powers from. This is where we know things, how to do things well. But if, especially, well, in your case, it's more relevant because you have your rising sign there. But if for most people, they have a different rising sign, if we keep doing our moon and our lineage and what's like just natural for us in life, we're losing on this whole journey of why we're here and what else we are here to do. So, but for you, you're in the category of people who are coming from the past to future to explore the same archetype. And it is really, again, more than any time at this time of turning of the ages, you get to actually vote, okay, what worked for Pisces in the past, a few thousand years? It can be the past 2,000 years. It can be the past, the bigger cycle, 26,000 years, because we're kind of thinking that it might be also that bigger turning, not just from 1 month of this big cycle to another, but the whole 26,000 years might be ending and finishing, which would be even more opportunity for doing things and planting seeds for something even bigger, you know. So coming back to the personal, it's hard, not to go back and forth, but to the Pisces, you get to choose, okay, what worked for it, and maybe how can we do Pisces now that would be more beneficial for where we are going in life. What part of it worked well, what part of it didn't, because the whole of life is, in a way, is experiment. We really have a vote. We really get to say how things are done as a human. We have our unique expressions, no matter if we have the same archetypes as somebody else. It's like having the same ingredients as somebody else, and you both can cook two completely different dishes. That's the same thing with the ingredients in your chart. So Pisces is definitely a really big archetype for you, and it comes naturally to you, but you're investigating now through the rest of your chart to find out what it is that you're learning beside what you know about the Pisces that can make you be even a better Pisces. And Pisces is definitely the last sign of the zodiac. Some say it is very evolved in that place, but we talked about like each sign of the zodiac. They're not just, this is this shape and it has this characteristic. It's because it come in a certain time in the cycle of the time. It's all of the astrology again is about the time. So and then also elements, which is what our whole reality is made of, the time and the elements. So with Pisces is a water sign. And you just think of the attribute of water, even if you don't know anything about the waters. They call Pisces be most related to the oceans. So the biggest water that's out there, that's connect everything, that helps the earth to breathe, and it's also in the form of the time. We always have a beginning, a middle, and end of time. And in that cycle, when we come to Pisces, it's an end of time, an ending of time. It's always have this mutability characteristic. It's really can be this or that. So we're adding all of that together, even if we don't know Pisces. You just imagine these waves of ocean just coming and merging into this big body of water. And what do we know about Pisces? Pisces is the one who can merge into the feeling functions with others so freely. Waters are our feeling functions, right? Water is emotion. So Pisces is the most evolved and it's the most fluid. So it gets all the other water sign also all related to the feeling function. For example, we have a Scorpio. It's the middle of the time with the water. So it's a fixed element of water. It's the one who gets to feel the deepest feeling and emotions, but for themselves. They can go to the depth of their sorrow and height of their joy. And that's their rightful job to do in this life. That's why they love intensities. With Cancer, it's the beginning of the time with that water. It has more of that quality of life-giving quality of water. It's initiating that element. So it's more that mother archetype, the one that nurtures seeds into maturity. So these are all water expressed in different modalities of time. And it makes sense, right? Even if you don't know about these archetypes, you still can draw your own ideas. And your ideas would always be more complete than any astrology book or any astrology clue that any astrologer can give you. Because once you understand it, it's like beyond those words. You're free to express it in its authentic way. However, it is that you have your unique flavor to add to it, but you just learn its essence. So with the Pisces, again, with the rest of your chart where we're exploring, we'll see that you have in this life like a lot of earth and air and also fire, but most of your chart is still in the service to spirit modalities. Most of the elements and archetypes are kind of put you to be here to really serve and give service. And other part of your lineage that we talked about, even it was really interesting. It's in Aquarius, has to do with really broadcasting, and your lineage of Pisces being of like healing modalities. And in this life, you're actually using the power of your lineage to create a show and broadcast it. That's about healing.
Mm-hmm.
It really works in that way, right?
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And also other elements of your chart, which is like your midheaven. It's where the highest part of the sky was at the time of your birth, which was in Sagittarius, which also gives you this quest for truth and knowledge and learning all these different modalities, and be in search of truth so you can also share it with others, because you're just enthusiastic about knowing all the different ways to get to this one truth and all the modalities. And isn't it cool? There is something else popping up. Oh, I didn't know about astrology before. Now I'm like interested to learn this one too and see how I blend it with all my other archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, a lot of things that I talked to you when we had our meeting and we talked more about your chart, it was really not a revelation, but more of a confirmation. And that's a really good sign, right? Because sometimes people are like, oh, I never felt like I had any of this archetype in me, or it's okay to express that part of me. But in other cases, people are like, oh, okay, it makes sense why I was this way or why I'm doing things in this way. And that's just give you an extra confirmation that this is a progressive place for you to go. Like, now that with your Pisces, yes, you have the right out of all the places on the wheel of life to really feel things. And sometimes maybe it's not okay in many cultures and places for a guy to have access to that much feeling, and they try to mask it and say maybe it's not okay. But knowing that, you're like, no, this is like my rightful place and that's my intelligence. And yes, of course, I always gonna feel things before I believe in the logic. It might come after, but it's first the feeling. So that just gives you, more of validation. And then you get to work to improve upon it, because, that's your strength. So you get to actually improve upon it with different modalities that might actually give you a better, more clear sense of your feeling function. And then also we know like what it is that with the Pisces, it's like one of the lessons that they basically learn later in life is that they have all this compassion and are in service to spirit and they want to give to everyone, but they always, as an honest mistake, forget to include themselves in, because they would feel too selfish to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, knowing that about yourself, you can always allow yourself to be extra selfish, because a Pisces rising and the moon can never, ever actually accomplish being fully selfish, even as a good thing. But like knowing that you can allow yourself being more of that is actually balancing to what you put out.
Mm-hmm.
Just like knowing that these like details, it just help us basically overall how to make decisions, how to, find out which way to go.
I was just gonna say, as it sounds like as much as I can dive into my feeling and own it, that's as much as I can also put energy into giving like myself compassion or some self-care.
Absolutely. And I think we had a Leo part in your chart. Yes, that's like another part to your life intent. You're basically coming um, to really learn to embody the Leo archetype and blend that with your Pisces, and that was the big key. That was also relating your chart with Nona because she has that as part of her lineage, and she knows, that's like part of her authentic being. So that's like a beautiful, one of many beautiful connections that your charts have together. That shows that you can't, like, she's here to help you with that, actually, how to have that authentic self-love, and that's when you can extend your compassion to yourself. And that can, again, it probably sounds like that to you, and it would to any good Pisces, that just sounds selfish, if like you should take care of yourself. But if you think of it as, even if you're fully in service of the world, if you're a healer, you do in any modalities, if you are still lacking in your full and your wholeness, you have less to give. And that's a good way to always motivate Pisces, to tell them, well, if you take care of yourself, you can actually give more.
Yeah, I think I felt that. I'm really bummed, but I'm really excited because we're at the end of our time. And I don't know if you know me well enough to know what I'm feeling right now, but it's pretty powerful and overwhelming. What do you have to say?
I think that, I think we're just starting on our journey of really understanding how to apply it now too, So I think I heard you say that each person is now able to take the information, but then it's going to apply in different ways for every single person. So that's part of the process. So maybe let's talk a little bit about what you do to help people. So you read people's charts, Shiva, and then do you also work with them to figure out how that plays out in their lives? What does that look like? A typical relationship with the person.
Can you give your information on how folks can reach you so they can get a reading as well, and then we'll answer that question. We'll say goodbye to all the folks and family at Kayla. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Yes, take care. I can be find at my website. All my contact info is there, or they can contact me through the website. It's called Living with the Mysteries with a S at the end .com. And the readings, basically, yes, I work with people in different way. I'm also part of the faculty in the School of Astrology with Danielle, my teacher. So I teach astrology, and also I help individuals with their charts. And after that, we basically dive deep into their transits as the life unfolds, when they feel like they need to understand what's happening maybe in the bigger picture with them. We have sessions and we follow up on the charts. And beside that, I'm also studying herbalist, practicing herbalist, and I also help people with their medical astrology, which is another whole topic of how you can use it to actually apply to your body and your physical being. So all of those are available on my website, and also for local people and for the Humboldt. This work is definitely, I consider it my sacred work, and I want it to always be available to everyone, regardless of their financial ability. I think that's our duty to, share that knowledge if somebody's seeking that. So if you go on the website and what's my asking exchange is there and it's not available, they can just simply contact me, and I work with donations, or we can do other creative exchanges. So it's definitely available, both for the medical astrology or the astrology, or any of the other services.
No one will be turned away, basically.
Awesome.
Yay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for joining us, Shiva. And it's been lovely. And I'm looking forward to learning more and more as we continue with our relationship, and maybe have you back sometime to talk about medical astrology as well. And any last words, Holly?
Thanks, Sid. Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. And until next time, may your chi flow smoothly.
Thank you so much. Blessings, blessings, KMUD.